Enjoy the lesson and pay attention. I'll be keeping an eye on you.
Hello everyone and welcome to another lesson on TIBCO BusinessWorks. In our last lesson, we learned how to expose a REST service by creating a process to handle requests and responses. We saw how the module descriptor and its components, which you can access right here, act as our control panel for service configuration. Specifically, we managed the resource path, operations, and handled the request and response. The association with the HTTP connector allowed us to turn our application into a real server. Now, let's focus on the host. We're going to change its value to localhost. You'll notice we'll be switching from a module properties value to a literal one, but I'll dedicate a whole lesson to that topic later on, so don't worry about it for now. As for the port, it's already set to 8081. Today we're changing gears and exploring the world of SOAP web services. It's a more rigid protocol compared to REST, where requests and responses travel as XML documents. You can find the link to the code for this lesson in the description. Just like we used Postman to test our REST services in the last lesson, today it's time for a new tool. SoapUI, the application that allows us to test SOAP services quickly and easily. In this lesson, we'll also create two operations, one to get all person records from a database and another to insert new ones. We'll be reusing the integration and operation processes we've already created. Creating a SOAP service is easier if you already have the service contract, which in this case is a WSDL file written in XML, but we don't have. You can think of it as the XML-based equivalent of Swagger for REST. And just as REST services can expose multiple operations from a single endpoint, like GET and POST, SOAP services can also host multiple operations, but you give them a custom name. We'll take a closer look at that in a moment. The first step is to create a component process. This will be our entry point to handle requests and send back responses. The icons in the top left corner let us expose different types of services. For example, the one in the right is for a REST service, but we need the one in the left to create our SOAP service. In the configuration wizard, we'll change the operation name to getPersons, click on Next, and then Finish. The next crucial step is to create the SOAP binding on the component that was automatically generated in module descriptor components. As you can see, the module descriptor folder has an X error, and that's because this piece is missing. To fix it, we'll select our component and click Bindings and Paperclip icon to create the SOAP binding. In the section that appears, we'll select HTTP as the transport type and choose an HTTP connector that's already configured in the last lesson. Here, we'll see the endpoint URI, which will change to SOAP person. Save all and see, the error on the module descriptor is gone. Another way to create the SOAP binding is directly on our process. Just right-click on the service, go to Components, and select Create SOAP Binding. Since we need to operations, and we already have getPersons, we'll add the other one. Just click the little arrow and select Add Request Response Operation. Then rename it to InsertPerson by clicking the light bulb icon in the bottom right. You've done a great job defining the operations, but did you forget something? We haven't defined the request and response for our operations yet. By clicking the little arrow, you'll see the service is linked to a WSDL that TIBCO automatically created inside the service descriptors folder. Be careful, though this isn't our final contract yet. Let's format it for better readability by selecting everything and hitting Ctrl-I. You'll notice that the requests and responses are imported from an XSD schema with the prefix ext and s. To see its content, just hold down Ctrl and click on the element. This will take you to the schema where the real request and response elements are defined. Let's format this schema as well to make it easier to read. As you can see, requests and responses contain simple in and out string fields. We need to use the schema elements that define the actual input and output for our get and insert person processes. To do this, we need to import that schema using the import tag. We can visually select the correct file by clicking the 3 dots. TIBCO will then add a new namespace associated to a prefix into the header tag, in this case, pref. Now, for getPersons, let's modify the response to reference the listPerson element, making sure to use the pref prefix. The request will remain empty. For insertPerson, the request will reference the element containing the person's data, and the response will be a simple string message. Quick break, if you're finding this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Finally, we'll go back to our process to complete the implementation. Drag one of the 2 operations onto the canvas and choose Implement Constructor Operation. Then drag the other operation to implement it separately. These are the constructors that define the boundaries of our operations. By clicking on this little icon, you can view the request. Just like with REST, reply palettes are automatically generated here to send the response back to the client. We can also add reply palettes in the catch error section to send an error response. We'll call our operation level processes, mapping the inputs and the output data directly to the reply that will go straight to the client. To test our service, we need the final contract, which is the concrete WSDL. To generate it, we go to the component, which is also accessible from here. Then, to generate the contract, click on Generate Concrete WSDL. We can save it to our workspace or to our local file system. This file is our real contract, with all the requests, responses, operations, and the endpoint we need to call. Now, let's run a test in debug mode. In the console, launch the command L endpoints to retrieve all the services our application exposes. As you can see, we have the SOAP endpoint. As promised, it's time to use SoapUI, an incredibly useful tool for testing SOAP services. By clicking on SOAP and importing the WSDL we just generated, SoapUI will automatically create the 2 operations, getPersons and insertPerson. For the get, you can see the endpoint is already filled as we expected, and the request is empty. After clicking play to send it, we get a 200 OK response, and in the XML tab, we can see the list of people retrieved from the database. For the insertPerson operation, SoapUI generates a sample request with placeholders. Let's replace the question marks with a fictional name, like Al Capone, and send the request. The response is a simple confirmation message, and if you check the database, you'll see the route was inserted correctly. Returning to TIBCO, you can find the debug trace of all our processes. Just like in the last lesson, here is a small exercise for you. Add a new operation to the service to modify a person's fields given their ID. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you next time!